Right, today is a mix of some good and bad news regarding the next MacBook Pros because we have information that the next MacBook Pros could be made of titanium, which sounds really cool. But then we also have information about the redesign not being as much of a redesign as we initially thought, and possibly the omission of the gorgeous mini LED display. Maybe that's not happening, which is really odd too. So yeah, let's delve into all of this. Make sure to like and subscribe, click that bell notification for the latest Apple news and rumors. And with that being said, let's just tuck in. Right, the first report I want to delve into is a patent that patently Apple noticed regarding a future titanium version of the MacBook Pro. So in their words, Apple is researching the use of processed titanium with unique properties for future models. You see, this is the issue with titanium. It's a very durable material, it's way stronger than aluminium, but it is hard to etch, and so it's basically going to make the MacBook look incredibly ugly. But of course, Apple sprinkled some of their magic on top of this, and in this patent, they basically show a new solution to this problem by outlining a blasting, etching, and chemical process to give this titanium enclosure a more attractive appearance. Now, I have no clue as to what this process is, but in their words, they describe this textured surface including peaks separated by valleys and specific micrometer measurements and gloss units, which sounds interesting, I guess. I mean, I don't really understand what they're trying to say, but it sounds good. I can say that. It sounds very good. Either way, what we need to know is that Apple can achieve a finish which is glossy and looks just as great or even better than aluminium, but of course have extra durability and extra strength. In fact, in Apple's usual marketing jargon, they mention this distinctive surface finish being diffusely and speculary. That word, speculary, reflects visible light. I have no idea what they're trying to say, but again, it sounds pretty dope, and I am definitely on board. Now, of course, you may be thinking, is this the first time we're seeing titanium in a MacBook? Well, no. Apple has included this before, back in 2001 with the PowerBook G4. But weirdly enough, because titanium is so much stronger, Apple can give us a thinner shell. And so, of course, you have a lighter body, but because of the thin shells, you have brittleness, and that could, of course, crack and break. And yes, that's exactly what happened with the PowerBook G4, along with the paint peeling off, so it's kind of weird they're going back to that design and finish even though it was troublesome for them in the past. But of course, there is a glimpse of hope in that 2001 Apple is completely different from 2021 Apple, and so, of course, Apple using titanium in today's Apple Watch and giving this finish that resembles what they mentioned in the patent, which of course is this distinctive, interesting finish, I think it is plausible they bring this over to the new MacBook Pros. I think the only issue is price. Titanium is of course going to be expensive. Apple charges a premium for titanium on the watch, so does this mean that the MacBook Pros will be going up in price because of this choice of material? Or maybe will they offer different finishes, maybe aluminium for a cheaper price, and then of course titanium for those pro consumers that want to flex their MacBooks? And I'm hoping this is the case because aluminium has been completely fine for me. Yes, it dents very easily, but for the most part, it's pretty fine on a Mac, and I think titanium is something I have to see in real life before I actually decide if I want to pay the premium for, and I don't really understand much of this patent and the big words they use, so yeah, I don't really care about titanium, but tell me in the comments below, would this be a huge deal for you? Would you actually be invested in a titanium MacBook? Also, by the way, I have to mention this, but of course this is a patent, which means that Apple is testing this, but it might never see the light of day. And of course, making titanium on a mass scale is going to be something that maybe Apple can't do, especially if this is a standard thing on the MacBook Pros. So yes, bear that in mind. This could just be some prototypes that Apple has within the campus and never just sees the light of day. But I do want to mention that we have seen a lot of patents regarding the finish on the MacBooks very recently. For example, the matte black or Vanta black MacBook Pro I mentioned in a previous video. You can check it out in the icon above. But it does seem that along with the redesign and, of course, the Apple Silicon chip, they're trying to reinvent the MacBook and give it a completely unique and different experience and feel overall. Talking about that redesign, let's now talk about how that might not be happening. So of course I made a video covering Min-Chi Kuo's huge leak on the future MacBook Pros. You can check it out in the icon above, but essentially he mentioned the next MacBook Pros should incorporate a design that's more in line with the iPhone 12s. Now this did make a lot of sense to me because we are very much due for a design refresh with the MacBooks, and Apple loves flat edges all of a sudden, so yes, incorporating it in every design possible, that seems very plausible. But Mark Gurman has a completely different idea. Now he mentions in his report that apparently the design refreshes will be pretty minor overall. Now he doesn't mention any specifics, but he says the word minor, and Min-Chi Kuo said major, so clearly he thinks the design is not going to be as drastically different as Min-Chi Kuo has led us to believe. Now I'm not sure where I stand on this because yes, I do agree Mark Gurman is by far the most reliable leaker out of the two, but Min-Chi Kuo is also a veteran leaker, so we can take his information with some credibility too. Also, like I said, the MacBook line does need a refresh, and so giving it a redesign alongside these big Apple Silicon upgrades, that also makes a lot of sense. And also, think about it, practically it makes a lot of sense to give us a thicker design with flat edges because, of course, we need Face ID, and Face ID in the current curved lid design, it doesn't seem likely, and so I do think that we are very much in for a redesign both practically and for an aesthetic refresh in general. I guess we'll have to see, but I am hoping we see a huge redesign because of course I need all my Apple products to match. I want them to be all flat edged. That would be absolutely amazing. So yes, Timothy, please make that happen. Don't disappoint us. Although, talking about disappointing, let's now move on to mini LED. So this is something that was confirmed months ago. In fact, it's been a year since we started seeing rumors about mini LED coming to future Apple products, and ever since, we've been getting consistent rumors about that happening. But then I noticed something quite interesting about Mark Gurman's report on the 14 and 16-inch MacBook Pro. Now he mentions the displays should be getting brighter and also higher in terms of contrast, but he never uses the word mini LED to describe the screens. Now yes, I know that mini LED has characteristics of being very high in terms of brightness and of course having great colors and contrast ratios, but the thing is, he mentions the iPad Pro, the 2021 model, which I've covered many times on this channel. He says, yes, that will be coming with a mini LED panel, but he never says anything about that with, of course, the MacBook Pro. And to take this conspiracy theory further, I check Min-Chi Kuo's initial report on the redesigned MacBook Pros again, and there is no mention of a mini LED panel. I assume that in the video, but there's no mention of the displays getting the mini LED upgrade we've been waiting for. And that is really odd because in every other report, he has mentioned the presence of mini LED. So leaving that detail out in such a big report, it seems a little unusual. And with talks about 5G and Face ID being delayed for future iterations of this Mac, maybe the same applies to mini LED. Maybe that'll be something delayed for future models. Now, of course, DigiTimes did mention that due to the pandemic, there have been huge issues in producing mini LED panels. In fact, the iPad Pro we're getting with mini LED was supposed to launch at the end of 2020, but because of COVID, it's been delayed for, well, I think March 2021, but if there's further issues, it could be postponed even further. And so maybe logistically, Timothy thought that, hey, mini LED should be cut so we can make more of these MacBooks faster and of course make it easier for our supply chains while they are recovering from this pandemic. I mean, we saw this with the AirPods Max, for example. They were rumored to have interchangeable headbands, but because of the production issues, they cut that feature for the final version, and so we have to assume these cut features will eventually come to future iterations of that model. And so yeah, I think the moral of the story is that maybe we should temper our expectations for this dream MacBook Pro. Maybe Apple has to cut features and delay features for future versions of these Macs. That could very well be possible because right now these seem like the dream, the perfect machines, but there has to be a catch. And so maybe delaying some big features, that could be the issue. But tell me in the comments below, would the lack of a mini LED panel put you off these new MacBook Pros? Obviously, we're still getting a bunch of new features like MagSafe, more ports, bigger screens, and most importantly, Apple Silicon chips. But is that enough for you, or would you wait for the big features like Mini LED and Face ID in future iterations? And on that note, thank you for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click that bell notification for the latest Apple news and rumors. Check out a video here in the icon above about the Apple TV coming very, very soon. And I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya, peeps.